The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil,
but by those who watch them without doing anything.
The world will not wait.
The planet will not be patient.
The time has come.
The time is now.
Because this is where history is made.
Where greatness is born.
Where we take a stand.
Make a choice.
That moment is now.
We are at that crossroad.
That thin line between light and dark.
Good and evil.
Love and fear.
That moment to step into the light.
A new awakening.
To take a stand together.
To make your mark.
to stand tall,
To celebrate.
To welcome a new era.
Not just for us.
but for the next generation, for the future.
So that one day,
When it's all said and done. When the sun sets.
When we close our eyes,
When there's nothing left to do,
When we look back at what we've done,
we can say
that we gave it our all.
That we stood for justice,
courage.
Integrity.
honor,
Kindness.
Peace,
truth.
That we inspired others.
That we celebrated. That we welcomed a new dawn.
Tonight,
We celebrate
We give it our all.
we stand for justice.
Courage.
integrity.
Honor.
kindness,
Truth.
peace, love.
Welcome to a new era.
Welcome to the age of consciousness.
Welcome to the 2019 Conscious Companies Awards.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Guru Kali.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to all of our guests tonight. Welcome to our judges, our partners, our friends, our family. Thank you all for being here tonight. A special welcome to all of our finalists. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2019 Conscious Companies Awards.
Excited finalists packed a gala dinner at the venue for an evening celebration to honor organizations that align people, planet, and profit. Partners and dignitaries filled the room to recognize South Africa's conscious visionary leaders who are committed to business as a force for good. It was an evening extravaganza to be remembered.
Usually Chopin Studios, Tumelo, Ledwaba. He is Mr. Ethics and Governance. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Mervyn King.
Companies, as you all know, are imagined realities. They don't exist. They're not tangible. They're intangible, incapacitated, inanimate entities.
Any initiative where we attempt to transform or shift the way we live our lives as human beings, we can't do it alone. It requires partnership. It requires people with a common vision, a synergy. And we found exactly that with Luco from Unilever. So I would now like to call upon the Executive Vice President of Unilever South Africa, Mr. Luc Olivier Marquet.
It's been a tremendous pleasure to partner with the Conscious Leadership Academy. And over a year, we've been training hundreds of young talent, young conscious leaders who's going to be great leaders for that country and changing the roadmap of that country.
I'm really glad to call the CEO of the Mail and Guardian for a few words. Ladies and gentlemen, Hussein Kajika.
This project seeks to reinforce the importance of good governance and ethical leadership and the benefits that accrue from that by simply doing what is right and doing it with a clear conscience.
Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of IQ Business and the 2018 Conscious Companies Awards winner, Mr. Adam Kraker.
What's helped us at IQ Business through the challenges that I think all of us have been facing over the last year in our economy has been the focus on consciousness and taking it further. It really has been the start of a new chapter for us as an organisation, I will admit to you that even today, I don't feel worthy as an individual or as an organisation of the accolade of a conscious company. And indeed, as I look at the participants this year, and indeed the finalists, the bar has been raised.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, Cheryl Carolus.
I really am proud to be part of a very lucky generation. I'm proud to be old enough to have lived through all the horrors and to have emerged triumphant. I'm proud to be able to claim truthfully that I was one of those in the front lines of the liberation struggle. I feel enormously privileged to be young enough to be part of the generation that is shaping a very different future for our country. And I think it's very rare in the history of the world to live through such a full circle. I want to use this opportunity this day today in the history of our country to salute that visionary founder of the Conscious Companies Institute, this phenomenal woman called Brenda Carley. Brenda, who has, like a true societal leader and visionary, lit a candle in the hours of darkness in our country. For whilst it is necessary and important to identify what is going wrong when things are going wrong and to fight it, it is more important to positively and proactively set a framework for what is going right.
It is with great love and honor that I welcome the founder of the Conscious Leadership Academy and the CEO of Conscious Companies, my mom, Brenda Carley.
The finalists tonight are a unique breed of men and women who greatly impacted their sphere of influence. You are all conscious leaders trying to create conscious companies. Over these years, the most common question asked of me is, what is consciousness? Consciousness is not some pie in the sky, esoteric concept practiced by some new age flakes. It is as tangible as one's breath. Many of us go about our daily business totally unaware of our breath. So too is consciousness. It exists beyond the threshold of one's awareness. Common take is that consciousness is a deep awareness of one's thoughts, feelings, emotions, actions, reactions, evidenced by care and compassion. So the difference between a doctor that cuts a patient and a murderer that cuts his victim is care and compassion.
Let's meet this year's finalists.
The panel of judges chaired by Mervyn King included former Minister Issa Pahad, Agnes Peter, and Vukani Magubani. The judges examined this year's entries, selecting 4 NGO and 6 company finalists.
Here are the nominees for the NGO category. Business Engage, Carleen Larson.
As a conscious company, we play a very important role, and there is a responsibility that comes with that. When we look forward to the future, I think it really is about creating that business environment where all can really grow and succeed.
Harambe, Mariana Escanda.
We spend every day measuring the gap between the ideal of what we wish we were and the reality of where we are, and closing that gap every day. We definitely spend every day looking at the values on our walls and making sure how they actually live in the hallways of our organization.
Moving into dance, Nadia Virasamy.
Looking beyond individuals and seeing a whole, looking beyond your own privilege, your own circumstances, and understanding the position of the other. And I think that is what consciousness is, and that is exactly what moving into dance does.
The Winnie Mabasa Foundation, Lisa Ashton.
The Winnie Mabaso Foundation is changing lives. We call our acts of kindness Mabaso Love, and that Mabaso Love is shared both within our organisation and outside our organisation.
And your winner is...
Harambe.
Let's take a look at the finalists for the companies.
Here are your nominees. BNP Paribas, Vickers Candelval.
We're trying to see if we can make Johannesburg, for instance, a financial center for sustainability within the United Nations Environment Programme. These are very simple things, and I must say that it is as a community that we are coming together and doing it, not one versus the other, and that's the beauty of it.
LifeSense Group, Angus Rowe.
I have a principle in life that if someone comes into my office and tells me that my business is more important than their family, then I feel their moral compass is somewhat skewed. We started with that ethos from day one, even when we were a brand new entrepreneurial business with 3 or 4 staff members. We wanted to start with the right ethos from day one, not try and bring it in later. Now that we've been nominated, it's like perhaps we're being recognized for something that we've just been doing as part of our life.
MIP Holdings, Richard Firth.
It's all about authenticity, about doing things for the right reasons, about having the right DNA to make a difference in society while still obviously doing as good as you can for your shareholders. MIP truly embodies what a conscious company is meant to represent.
The Unlimited, Ian Buchan.
If we do the right thing, pay people well, look after them well, look after their wellness. Some people might say you're taking the moral high ground route and stuff like that. But we don't do that. We don't boast about it. We keep a low profile. We just go on, do the right thing, and we've built a very big business that continues to grow.
Turner and Townsend. Stephen McCartney.
We've got great integrity, so if we're going to say that we're going to do something to a client, if we say we're going to do something with our staff, if we say that we're going to do something with the community, we follow through. If I don't act with integrity, if I don't act with honesty, if I don't act with compliance, are they going to do it? Of course they're not.
Tashia Advisory Services, Marissa Truta and Abigail Kaluse.
We knew that through our interventions, we can contribute positively to that economic growth.
Our hearts and our minds are really in about how do we take into account all the stakeholders that are involved to drive benefit for everyone as far as possible.
And your winner is
BNP Paribas.
We are extremely honored, and thank you to Brenda and the team and all the judges for acknowledging us. Whilst I look at consciousness personally, and I think to myself that to acknowledge consciousness is to put into society in everyone's mind that everybody on a daily basis needs to be conscious of, firstly, everybody around them. The person next to you might be in a different situation to what you maybe have been privileged to be in. And also for our children and for their future. If we don't watch our water consumption and watch our carbon emissions in the future, we're not going to have an environment that we are fortunate to live in today. We're accepting this award on behalf of our CEO, Vickers Candelval, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. He instills consciousness throughout the company, and it's for every one of the leaders out there in today's day and age. If you don't instill it from the top down, it just will not be in your organization. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, the judges. And yeah, thank you, BNP, for giving us the ability to be conscious.
The timing couldn't have been better for the launch of the Conscious Leadership Academy. The day before, South Africa heard that it had officially entered a technical recession. On the day of the launch, former Steinhoff boss Marcus Jooste testified in Parliament. The day after, the inquiry into state capture entered its 10th day. Building on her non-profit organisation Conscious Companies, CEO Brenda Carley had been working for some time on encouraging a more ethical approach to doing business.
Being in the corporate space for over 35 years, I just watched people behave in such an atrocious manner. And just my observations from the corporate space made me realize that there's a need to change human behavior. Because I don't know what happens to people when they go into a corporate or a public service environment. They lose who they are, they lose their core. We are supposed to, as human beings, be noble and kind and loving. But have you ever worked in a corporate environment and seen what they do to each other? They make it okay to trample and stand on the shoulders of others to get ahead. Mm-hmm. And you know, they use their positional power, especially if you're a manager, to not to influence and enrich, but rather they bully and they loot and they acquire. And I just thought, for conscious leaders shape conscious companies, and to do that, leaders must behave in a conscious manner, and then it comes cascading down. So I started Conscious Companies. It was a scribble on a page in the middle of the night when I wanted to retire. So unfortunately I can't at the moment, because this has gained so much traction over the years. It's 3 years now, and it's gained so much traction. And so more and more people are starting to realize that there's a different way of doing things, and there has to be a different way, otherwise the consequences will be dire. Just look at the environment we come from. The newspapers scream every day of headlines, scandals, corruption, corporate shenanigans. It's not necessary. There is enough. Nature provides enough abundance for everyone, yet children still go hungry to bed. It shouldn't be like that. And that comes out of conscious leadership. So we have to, as human beings, change behavior.
So the conscious leader of a corporation is one who plans for the long-term health of a company, not short-term wealth. If you get the long-term health of a company right, then you're creating value in a sustainable manner. And that's in the best long-term interest of all the stakeholders, including the shareholders. Otherwise, the company will fail, especially in a century of radical transparency with social media. So as soon as a company operates as an irresponsible corporate citizen, social media takes over. And as you know, reputation has become a critical part of what is now 80% of intangible assets of companies versus what is additives in a balance sheet according to financial reporting standards. So we're in a century of intangible assets with radical transparency, reduced natural assets, increased demand for product, and that is the global reality. So with climate change and all these things, these are drivers of changing the corporate mind. And the corporate mind can no longer plan just on the financials.
What has happened in South Africa, particularly for young millennials, Gen Z, they are having a look and they're saying the old order didn't work. You've destroyed the economy, you've destroyed the planet. We heard the statistic on more plastic than fish in the ocean. And I think they'll punish those companies who deliver only profit. I think they're more interested in, do you put the water that you use back into the earth than how much of it is in the product. And so I think the conscious leadership is absolutely for the moment to deliver to the new generations, particularly, as I said earlier, in a social media world, entities that make profit, but in making profit are sustainable and are going to give to young people, in addition to the profit, that they've looked after the people and that they've looked after the planet.
The brainchild of Brenda Carley, the Conscious Leadership Academy was created to build conscious leadership capacity in a country that desperately needs a shift in consciousness, ethics and governance. Professor Mervyn King
that we
brokered
can
the
only meet
partnership
the
with
needs of the
Regenesis Business School.
I believe most of the problems we have today in the world in terms of poverty, unemployment, wars, terrorism, diseases, are about leadership. A root cause is leadership. So it's about lack of conscious leadership. So we can make the world a better place only by developing better leaders, more conscious leaders. Leaders that work for purpose, for greater good. Leaders who are not just thinking about money and greed, and leaders who are not arrogant. So in order to make the world a better place, we need better leaders. They create ripple effects. And leaders that have developed emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, which is about purpose, about ethics, about truth, about authenticity. Leaders who can care for their team members, leaders who are grateful and humble. So those are types of leaders we need to develop, to make the world a better place. Not only world, but also our companies, to improve performance in our companies and to achieve success. We need more conscious leaders. So this institute is going to really address that problem on the highest level of leadership, by engaging in various activities. One of them is we're going to have a conscious leadership MBA, conscious leadership MBA, and then we're going to have also forums, workshops, seminars, and we will create a platform where leaders can come and discuss conscious leadership. They can share their experiences and they can support each other to make really greater impact.
Also partnering with the Academy is Unilever South Africa. More than a century ago, the company's founders had a vision of the world that was broader than their business and used their brands to address big social issues of the day. So it seems to me that you jumped at the opportunity to partner with the Conscious Leadership Academy.
Yes, I think it was important, and we need more leaders who have that consciousness about and can really be the advocate of it does exist a model where it's an economical model where we can still perform, grow the company while having a social impact. And I think that's very critical. And I can mention, that the fact is our brands with purpose, the brands which has really a sense of purpose and doing better for the community, no matter if it's acting on water like the sunlight, washing powders, which is help to use 50% less water, Lifebuoy, as I mentioned, Domestos, and many others. Basically, these brands are growing much faster than the other brands. So it does exist an economical model. And we need more leaders, we need more conscious leaders to transform that world, as well as we need us as Unilever more partners, because it's a part of the SDG 17 where we need this partnership to create a stronger, bigger impact and develop a brighter future for all South Africans.
It's absolutely critical, both in the public and private sector, that we have conscious leaders. And by conscious leaders, I mean those who appreciate that they have to develop a business model, or the way they do business, or the way a department in government operates, that it has a positive impact on these three critical dimensions for sustainable development. Because the reality is we do have climate change. We do have global financial crises. We do have a situation where we are in a resource-constrained world. We do have a world where we've got to control our emissions. So these are realities. And so much so that the United Nations, some 7 years ago, developed the principles of responsible investment. So even in capital markets today, if you and I are directors of a company, let's say a state-owned company in South Africa, let's say Eskom. Eskom used to issue bonds which went into the capital markets of the world with a particular coupon, and there was bidding for those bonds. And so they raised capital to carry on the business of producing energy for South Africa. But I'm prepared to wager if Eskom issued a bond today, there'd be no bids for it. So things have got to change. And I think the reason for that is there were not conscious leaders who were appointing those directors. It wasn't the directors themselves, but then the management. So the evidence says, I've got personal knowledge, so the evidence said they were acting on a basis of self-enrichment, self-gratification, and did away with self-concern. So I always tell students there's a river called the Self River, SELF. And as directors, you have to cross that Self River where you leave behind self-concern. So you take risk for reward, although it might damage you. You might one day be sued. None of us get our business judgment calls right 10 out of 10. But we have to take risk for reward. That's why your trustees of your pension fund invest in the equity of companies. And when we cross that Self River, we go into the area of intellectual honesty. What does that mean? It means the honest application of mind in the best interest of this incapacitated, inanimate person that has no heart, mind, or soul of own. It's got no conscience. You as the corporate leader become the conscience of the company. And that's what the academy is going to teach. Teach that you approach the decision making to make sure it's not only intelligence, but emotional, in the sense that you're making sure you're meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And then S is for sustainable and spiritual. Spiritual means doing the right thing and doing it in a sustainable manner. So it's IQ, EQ, and SQ. And that's what we're going to teach at the academy, and have an MBA academy, which is Conscious Leadership MBA. And I think it's critical, particularly in our country, to make sure it's both in the public and private sector.
You know, it's amazing. You talk to a CEO today and you talk about conscious leadership, and they ask, what is it? What is consciousness? They don't get that conscience is very different from conscious, very different. Because consciousness is just a deep awareness of your thoughts, actions, feelings, behavior, and how you react. That's what consciousness is all about. And if you're really aware and you're conscious of your actions every day, can you imagine the impact you would make on everyone you touch?
In order to bring that across, what kind of faculty are you bringing in?
There's very in-depth knowledge of mindfulness, of yoga practice, of conscious leadership. So the faculty EQ, SQ, which is spiritual intelligence, emotional intelligence, how to align profit with value creation, how to align productivity with work ethic, getting the big picture as you as the human being put in a special space in a corporate environment, in a position of power where you can not only gain benefit, because there's always self-interest, but also to be able to reach out and uplift and help others.
And how long do you think it will take for this to start having a broader impact on South African society?
I think it started having an impact already. When I call for nominations for the Conscious Companies Awards each year, I've seen an exponential growth. So last year we had 82 nominations, small, big, huge companies. Luco from Unilever was one of our finalists. And so they already get the consciousness. And those who do not make it to the final 6, they come back to me and say, why didn't I make it? And that's why the need arose for the Conscious Leadership Academy.
The world is crying out for leaders that have IQ, EQ, and SQ.
If leadership is not conscious, it's not ethical, it's not driving the right values, it cascades right down to the person who stands at the gate.
The need to act was now. And I think for everyone, we need to understand that. There is no more time to waste. The world in which we are living will be dramatically different in 50 years from now if we don't act immediately.
We are a nation of talkers. We do summits and conferences and roundtables and panel discussions with very little implementation. But this is different.
The one luxury that this country's run out of is time. The reality of the situation is we do need time to effectively bring about behavioural change.
I think we are in a time when the line has been drawn.
We have to rethink the way that we approach everything that we're doing to create a sustainable future.
We believe that every generation has a calling, right? And the calling for, as we interpret it, the calling for our generation is to deliver sustainable livelihood to Africans.
How do we ensure that when we are back in a cycle of progressive growth in our economy, how do we make sure that it actually uplifts the standard of living for fellow South Africans?
Inspire in the youth of the country that in fact there might not necessarily be a job for them tomorrow, but that they can in fact acquire the competencies, the sense of confidence that they necessarily need to take responsibility for their lives, and that they can strive towards a true north.
At a time where millennials, they are not looking for brands anymore. They are not looking for, the big companies and the big brands. Unless you give them a true and honest reason to believe and a true and honest reason to buy.
Even in times of darkness,
Just takes one.
Just one reminder
of who we are,
of why we are here.
It just takes one.
Just one reminder
that even when the days seem darkest,
even when the nights are cold
and lonely
and sad
and uncertain,
and it may feel like no one has your back,
that it just takes one.
One glimmer of hope.
One leap of faith.
One act of kindness.
It just takes one.
Just one to say enough.
One man with a dream.
One community.
One family.
One humanity.
Because maybe there is just one more chance for redemption.
Just one more chance to give love.
Just one more chance to embrace another.
Just one more reminder that it's one planet.
In celebration of those few men and women who stand as beacons of light in times of darkness. In partnership with PrimeServe and Sanlam. It's the Conscious Companies Awards 2020. Please welcome your program director, the winner of the Conscious Companies Awards 2018, Adam Craker.
Welcome to the 2020 Conscious Companies Awards. Over the years, Conscious Companies has worked with leaders searching high and low for ethical business leaders, and through the awards, celebrating and recognizing conscious leadership. From the glitz and the glamour of our usual annual awards ceremony, we bring you this virtual celebration, celebrating conscious leadership at a time when we've never needed it more.
Breaking news out of Wuhan, China, of a virus outbreak. Health officials issue warnings as much as still unknown.
I think most of us have even forgotten what pre-COVID-19 world was like, given what we have to go through over the last couple of 6 months.
The life was like life has always been. There were, of course, many challenges that we had to face, especially in South Africa, given the economic situation, the political situation. But there was kind of hope, and we were looking forward to something to improve. And that was what it was. We used to get up, do our meetings, go to the office, look at all the problems, decide on the priorities, and move on and on and on.
Running around, doing important things, meetings, client meetings, business results. It was pretty much the run of the mill.
And then COVID-19 hit all of us. It was really a blow that I think nobody had ever expected as to the impact that it is going to have on our lives, both personal and professional. And especially as a business, everything changed completely just from one day to the other. And it happened at such a rapid pace that we obviously had no time to prepare ourselves to what we are facing today.
Definitely a changed world that we're living in and operating in today.
If we look at the mental health and wellness issues, the depression, the women that are now out of work.
We've got leaders who are concerned with self-aggrandizement instead of taking into consideration the very reason that they are put in leadership position in the first instance.
It's just amazing that this thing that we cannot see with the naked eye has literally put the whole world onto standstill.
As the virus spreads across the US and the world, countries are now bracing for the consequences of this pandemic.
We're in real survival mode. People are starving in township communities, yet the solutions invariably seem to be organizations collaborating together, governments starting to show a greater propensity to partner with civil society, as well as the corporate world, to bring about solutions.
I think the beauty about COVID has allowed me, and I think many others, to take the time to think, to ponder bigger questions, to think about what's really important. I think we realized, I certainly realized that coming out of COVID, there's so many things that we do and we are so busy, and are they really important? Do they really contribute?
Lots of businesses are impacted with the pandemic. Lots of people are losing jobs. We must never lose sight of being a responsible corporate citizen. We must never lose sight of being there for our people, specifically in terms of need. Our people are looking for leadership, transparency, and they're looking for organizations that have high ethics. It is at this time where we really need to lead transparently.
I think Mother Earth can't breathe. Mother Earth is telling us as human beings to slow down, to be more thoughtful, that we shouldn't be thinking that the world that we live in is infinite, that at some stage, if we don't change our behavior, she will force us to behave differently. We are all intertwined. We all kind of like live in the same world. And when things go wrong, it's going to affect all of us.
We also do not know where this world is going. The way I would put it is that there is going to be a new normal, and that new normal is still evolving. It is changing. And I think if I look at the bright side, it is a great opportunity for all of us, for every single person and individual, to be a change maker and to try and bring in that new normal, which we all want. A new normal which is definitely better than the old, a new normal which is more sustainable, which is more tolerant, hopefully less unequal, and definitely more conscious.
I think that the difficulty that we've all been through over the past 5 months has really prompted an awareness within ourselves to be able to recognize individuals who've been able to almost be resilient to the challenges that the pandemic's brought about, and have thought of innovative ways in which they can still go and help society out there, and not sort of just throw their hands up and shrug their shoulders and say, look, this is something that only government needs to participate in. I think that we really wanted to identify organizations and individuals out there who, notwithstanding the challenges, were able to still see a goal or an objective in mind, and that was to help others. I think that is something that resonates very well with the Mail and Guardian.
Joining us to present the special Mail and Guardian Conscious Companies CEO Award for outstanding contribution during the COVID-19 crisis is the CEO of Mail and Guardian, Hussein Karjika, and the founder and CEO of Conscious Companies, Brenda Kari.
There are a number of companies who had made outstanding, exceptional contributions during this COVID-19 pandemic. They speak to the conscious leadership ethos.
This year, the Conscious Companies and Mail and Guardian Special Conscious Leadership Award goes to the gift of the givers.
It's not a conventional organization where I got up one morning and said, let's form an organization, put some people together, have a founding statement, a constitution, and some founding principles. It never started like that. Actually, I had no intention to form an organization. My wife and I met a spiritual teacher in Istanbul. It's a long story, but in August 91, we see the spiritual master. We see people from all religions in a Muslim holy place. And we're just surprised at the calmness and understanding and the respect for each other. No conflict, no discord, just understanding and respect as human beings. And I said, this is not what we see in the world, And we went back home. And after pilgrimage, a few months later, it came, the desire came, and I went back. It was the 6th of August, 1992, exactly 28 years ago. A Thursday night, he finishes off, and at 10 p.m. that Thursday night, he looks me in the eye from the corner of the room, and in fluent Turkish, he says, my son, I'm not asking you, I'm instructing you to form an organization. The name in Arabic will be Waqful Waqifin. Translated, it means gift of the givers. You will serve all people of all races, of all religions, of all colors, of all classes, of all cultures, of any geographical location, and of any political affiliation. But you will serve them unconditionally. You will not expect anything in return, not even a thank you. This is an instruction for you for the rest of your life. Serve people with love, kindness, compassion, and mercy. And remember, the dignity of man is foremost. So if someone is down in the ground, don't push them down further. Hold them, elevate them, lift them. Wipe the tear of a grieving child. Caress the head of an orphan. Say words of good counsel to a widow. These things are free. They don't cost anything. Clothe the naked, feed the hungry, and provide water for the thirsty. And in anything that you do, be the best at what you do. Not because of ego, but because you're dealing with human life, human dignity, and human suffering. And then he went on to say in Arabic, Khairun nas may yanfa'un nas. Best among people are those who benefit mankind. And he said, listen carefully. I'm saying it 3 times. The emphasis is on the word mankind, not Muslim, not Arab, not Indian. It's all people unconditionally. And then finally he went on to say that remember that whatever you do is done through you and not by you. This is a spiritual thing. You need to understand that very, very clearly. And then I told you he spoke to me in fluent Turkish. I don't understand a word of Turkish, but I understood every single word that he said. And I asked him at some point, I said, how come when you speak Turkish, I understand? And anybody else here speaks Turkish, I don't understand. And he said, my son, when the hearts connect and the souls connect, the words become understandable. Then I asked him, you gave me this instruction, but what does it mean? I said, you're a doctor, I'm a doctor in private practice, so is this something I do weekends, after hours, long weekends, holidays? When do I do this? And what do I do? I mean, it's so vast. Help people in which way? Is it housing? Is it food? Is it blankets? Is it feeding schemes? What is it? He just said, you will know. One line, you will know. And immediately after I walked out of the place, within the first few weeks, the inspiration came. Respond to the civil war in Bosnia. That first intervention sort of mapped out who we will be. We were going to be disaster relief specialists. Every day you see your family, you see your children, you see you got houses, it's cold in winter, you got air cons, you got heaters, you got warm blankets, you got electric blankets, you are fine, you are not hungry. Even in lockdown, you're okay, you sort out, you're not like people who have lost their jobs. So the fact that you're in a comfortable space says, you know what, your way of giving back is to make sure to say thank you that you are not in that unfortunate situation, is to keep giving back. And that's what drives us. We can't sit still because, first of all, it's a spiritual instruction, but of course not to go extremes. Secondly, you experience your own comforts, and because of the comforts, you want to respond. And thirdly, because you know you have the capability. Because when you think of yourself on the other side, and you think, if I was on the other side, what would I expect somebody to do for me? And you expect people to come as soon as possible, especially for your children. And so many places we've been, even in lockdown, foreign nationals will call and say, you know what, we're no man's land. We're not South African. We don't have IDs. We can't run the shops. We can't go back to our own country. We can't work. We can't access support from anywhere. If not for us, what about our children? They're 2 years old and 5 years old. They're hungry. Please come and see yourself. Bring the food and just give it to them. Don't give us. We'll starve. It's fine. Give it to our children. When you hear calls like that, how can you ignore? Every day you think you're going to rest, but every single hour there's some distress call. And because you know you can intervene, it's like criminals that can do nothing.
Conscious Companies and Mail and Guardian would like to express their gratitude and acknowledge organizations who have made exceptional contributions to society during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Fostering conscious leadership in current and future leaders is absolutely critical to the future of our lives, our businesses, and our planet. Ensuring that consciousness is instilled in leaders is the most critical conversation to have within a business. And I would suggest it is the most critical conversation that is required at the board level, and that of conscious leadership.
Thank you so much, firstly for having us on this very important conversation. And not only in our country, in our continent, but where we find ourselves as the world. And the role that organizations, private sector in particular, have to play in bringing a meaningful difference to society. And I guess, the notion of helping people achieve the betterment of life is a responsibility for all of us, not just for a few. So I want to use this opportunity to also call upon, many other, organizations and private sector and, far and wide, and including other sectors, to raise their level of consciousness in how they bring a meaningful difference to people's lives. And from a Sanlam perspective in particular, we always talk about this notion of doing well by doing good, I remember in the old days when this notion of when affirmative action or employment equity came into the fore, it almost felt like organizations had to choose from sustainable growth and getting equity in the workplace, getting diversity in the workplace. Whereas the truth of the matter is that diversity actually can fortify, this idea that companies can actually perform better. So in the same way, being conscious as an organization and understanding the environment and the society in which you operate can be a lever, to success, can be a lever to help you to doing well by doing good. So we talk about doing well by doing good, and that is at the epicenter of our strategy, and hopefully it permeates in everything that we do. So this belief guides us in our mission to help everyone secure their financial well-being, because we are in the financial services sector, and our role should be about using our expertise to bring that meaningful difference to people's lives. We want them to live better lives. We want them to live prosperous lives. And we want to build a promising future for generations to come. So, this is not something that sits, parallel to what we do. It is who we are. It is central to our strategy. And that's why we are involved with this incredible platform.
I've always been very concerned with the world we will leave behind for our children. I'm extremely concerned by the state of inequality in the world, by the state of the climate and the impact that climate change is having on the world. I'm distressed by the levels of poverty and inequality within South Africa, particularly, given that there was so much hope that came out of our democracy. And in order not to be negative and in order to maintain my positive approach to life, I think consciousness has given me that much more to be positive about, because one can always focus on the negative. One can always look to what is wrong. But if one becomes aware of what is the possibility that is out there, and that comes from the journey of personal consciousness, taking a moment to step back and to look at what is actually happening in the world that we live in, what is happening within the society that we are a part of. And if we can play a small, and it is a small role in changing the lives of a few of the people we come into contact with, and maybe the many that we work with, if we can uplift them, not necessarily out of poverty, but if we can uplift them from where they are to something that is better and better for all, give them greater economic opportunity, give them the ability for their own long-term sustainability, improve their ability to be part of an improved world. That comes from the personal journey of consciousness that I've been exposed to. I'm so aware of how privileged I have been and how privileged our organization is to interact with so many who lack that privilege but who demand of us so much more to advance their cause in life. And so for me, it's been an enormously uplifting personal journey, one where every day now, the organization is not simply about what is short-termism, what is our profit motive, but rather what is it both on a business level that we can make a difference in, but on a personal level. Every person that I hopefully come into contact with, be it at work, be it outside of work, are we or am I making a difference in their lives? That's quite a humbling place to be, to know that one really does have a responsibility as a leader or as a person to simply act properly.
And I suppose it's, every individual starts their journey to consciousness within their own way. And normally there's a catalyst that would start you looking for what is the purpose, what is my purpose, what is my organization's purpose, what is the meaning of the business that we do, or what is my own self-meaning. So, these journeys do start individually. And I think, maybe throughout my career, having always worked within the corporate environment, it's a lesson that I embarked on probably in my early 30s, so that it's to see how could I become a better person? How could I look at the impact I'm making on people in my lives? Am I leaving everything better behind? And trying to take that into a leadership position. And obviously having met Brenda and knowing that there's an organization like Conscious Leadership, I think it is, or Conscious Companies, I think it's a vital message that should be shared. And to work with Brenda to ensure that message is getting out there, I think it's something that we are doing as a value added to our members, because I think it's something that is important. And I think it was Gandhi that said it would be the change that we want to see in the world. So it starts with us as an individual, but it also starts with each organization. Just as you have a society of people, not everyone is aware in society. So as businesses, you don't always have people who are necessarily looking at the impact that they're making on the world around them and what legacy are they going to leave for their children. They're really just looking at the financial return of their business. So I think you get businesses in different stages, just as you get people in different stages. But I think, again, I think people generally want to do good. But I also think that sometimes, profit does become before the good. And I think what you are starting to see, especially within the large multinationals, is that sustainability is an important piece. There is an awareness of what we do to the environment, what we do to our employees. So I think that awareness is there. I think, as in anything, some countries are ahead of others, some organizations are ahead of others, and some businesses are ahead of others. So I think it's just to try and make sure that everyone is elevated to the same type of level.
The purpose is really at the heart of everything we do in Unilever, and creating a world where we can reduce that level of inequality that Sydney was mentioning is very critical. And I think I'm personally very proud and to work for a company like Unilever, who is, in everything we do, we put the citizen at the center of our business, with the absolute obsession for reducing that level of inequality. And it's clear that by 2035, probably we're going to be 10 billion population in the world, and we cannot continue to live with the same system that we've been living from a food supply point of view, from all aspects. So it's very important that the private sector drive that change, and to be able to demonstrate that you can have a system where the company continues to perform while having the purpose of and driving inequality, creating jobs, developing new food system, new models, and we can prove to everyone and to the financial community that you can perform while doing good for the communities. And I think that's very, very critical. And I'm happy to see that Unilever, who has been amongst very few companies to initiate a bit that trend. It's a trend which is growing very fast, and many big companies around the world really are joining forces now to really create that change.
We all have a responsibility to create a world worth living in. We know, there's stark, difference between the haves and the have-nots. There's Gini coefficient which continues, to grow. At this day and age, we should have, be at a point, if we were all as conscious as we should be, right? We all should be at a place where we're saying we can see that this world is really truly worth living in for everyone, not just for a few, not just for elite, not for a few types of people. It should be a world worth living in for everyone. And that's what it means to be a conscious leader. And that's why I think all of us, should stake claim to this responsibility.
I think, conscious leadership has various facets to it. And I think, for me, if you're a conscious leader, you have that integrity, you have that wanting to do what is right. The corporate governance is a given, because whatever your actions are, as a conscious leader, you are doing the right thing when it matters, and you're doing it at every opportunity.
I think it starts with integrity, and it's one of the key value of Unilever, one of the fourth value of Unilever, and consciousness starts with that. Is really the need that we see in the world today more than ever about the importance to invest with an absolute level of integrity, and it's not only for private sector to do it, but as well as for the government, and obviously all around us, all around the world, we see that need to really change, and we need to be a role model.
The investment in consciousness work around the people you have within your organization pays long-term dividends. It will make the difference to those that are exposed to it.
The digital revolution has allowed us to connect with people all over the world. One of the people that we are delighted to have connected with is the Chairman Emeritus of the Conscious Leadership Academy and the founder of the King Codes of Corporate Governance, Professor Mervyn King, as well as with Michael Juden, the Chairman of the Conscious Leadership Academy, and one of the most networked and connected individuals who literally can connect people in a room for the first time on a level of conscious leadership, which is absolutely astonishing.
The era of corporate leaders of the 20th century into the 21st century was to focus on increasing the wealth of shareholders on the principle that the wealth would trickle down to the impoverished at the bottom. Nothing trickled down. It became treacle, it stuck at the top. And in fact exploded in 2008 with the GFC. The financial model, underpinned by the primacy of the shareholder, just exploded. So the CEO is also a director, and his mind has got to be focused on the long-term health of the company, because that's in the long-term better interests of all the stakeholders. And if he's not doing that job, he's not fulfilling his contractual obligations to the company as a manager, nor his statutory obligations to the company in terms of the Companies Act, which are good faith, care, skill, and diligence. So he is a person that is not a conscious corporate leader. In fact, he's intellectually dishonest. We can't use the same tools which we used throughout the 20th century in that toolbox. We've got to get new tools. And the tools of acting in the best interest and increasing the wealth of shareholders resulted in the 20th century being a century of unsustainable development. By the end of the 20th century, we needed 50% more earth to sustain the population that existed at the turn into the 21st century, clearly not a sustainable way of the instrument through which business is conducted today, namely the limited liability company, because most companies are conducted through that medium. So if he or she doesn't apply those principles, he or she is failing themselves personally, but also is failing the most important person in society today is the company, because the company is at the center of the private sector, which creates employment and provides taxes so the government, if properly managed and well governed, governs the people of the country.
I believe that there's a link between consciousness and everything in your life. I think the beginning of really understanding consciousness, like so many other things in my life, to Mervyn. But of all the things that I've learned from Mervyn, one of the most important things I ever learned was when Mervyn taught me the importance of intellectual honesty. And the intersection of intellectual honesty and consciousness of being aware of what's happening, for me, has been the real journey of consciousness. It's very easy to read King 4 and to mindlessly apply the principles and mindlessly say we achieve the outcomes. I don't believe that unless you're intellectually honest and you're a conscious leader, that you can be an ethical leader and the type of leader for the world that lies ahead of us today. So I'm not sure that mindless leader should even be referred to as a leader, because I don't believe that they're a leader. What Brenda's done with conscious leadership, and I think what Mervyn's done by intellectual honesty and a mindful approach to the outcomes, is that a lot of people who didn't before now fall asleep thinking and asking themselves, am I a conscious leader? Am I intellectually honest? Some will be comfortable to fall asleep, that when they shave in the morning or do their makeup, that they're looking at a thief or a dishonest person. And for many, it will be an awakening and could lead to change. But without becoming too philosophical, even if they don't ask that question during their lifetime, I think they'll ask that question in the last few minutes before they close their eyes, unaware of the judgment to which they are going. And maybe then they'll be, without the benefit of a senior counsel, be asked the question, were you a conscious leader? Were you an ethical leader? Were you intellectually honest? And maybe in that court, good senior counsels don't help.
What the Conscious Companies Awards does is recognize people who have honestly applied their minds in the long-term interest of an organization. So I think recognition is an important thing of proper conduct. The same as there should be recognition of improper conduct by means of criminal sanctions, for example. So there should be recognition of proper conduct. And what these awards does is recognize proper conduct in the governing of organizations.
Initially, when you talk about consciousness to a leader, especially when we started Conscious Companies, they thought it was some esoteric pie in the sky and simply laughed at me or dismissed the idea or sneered. But over the years, leadership has decided or realized the importance of being a conscious leader and embraced it more and more.
You see, when we started on a journey of what we are doing, obviously, I personally was not aware of the conscious company movement in South Africa. So it was nice that for what we have done in this country was recognized, and BNP Paribas did win the award of Conscious Company 2019. What I saw is that this award created an aura which would not have happened before. And that kind of an aura impacted the teams that are around me. What then I saw is that at every opportunity, the staff came forward and tried to bring in ideas that are moving towards more and more consciousness. And I believe that is the journey that we have taken, and that is what then creates conscious leaders. And this is how I would think that we take one step at a time, we change one person who then changes the other, and that's how you have a butterfly effect, and hopefully you'll have many more conscious leaders and conscious people around.
When there is a communal mindset that says, let's be more conscious about our decisions and how our communal decisions are impacting upon the world around us, we do see more conscious behavior.
Consciousness is about bringing everyone along. It's about we than I. You know, it's you realizing that for us to become better leaders, for us to have a better community, we need each other and we need to pull each other along.
Conscious leadership is taking responsibility for things you see wrong in the world, wanting to make a difference, realizing that you're part of the problem, and also realizing that solutions, humans are successful because we're social animals. It's not our individual brains that make us powerful. It's the way we operate and how we learn, organize, and work together.
Invariably, as human beings, we're fallible, and very often we're fickle. So often, even the most conscious of us will slip back into old patterns, even if those patterns no longer serve us. And I also believe that it's not totally within our own role and control to necessarily develop these conscious moments, this sense of consciousness that I do think is in fact very often divinely inspired.
In a country that has seen so much corruption, fraud, destruction of shareholder value, how do we create conscious leadership capacity? How do we make leaders understand the enormous responsibility they have and the power that they have to have a great social impact on those they influence?
If those in the positions of power were conscious leaders, we would realize that we can't be doing things in a way that it doesn't benefit the rest of society.
We've lived for so many years with the Bismarck ideal that the end will justify the means. And I think that that is where a massive consciousness shift is taking place at the moment. My sense is that we're realizing that we can still fulfill our immediate needs through more conscious behavior.
There are still companies, organizations that might have values on their walls that talk about caring for people. But I think it's not always the case, once you get into these organizations. And I think it really is a personal journey that starts with each individual leader. Unfortunately, not everyone is conscious, but I think, bringing that message to the fore and helping individuals to see that there is an alternative way of leading through consciousness, I think is an important message that should be shared.
We know that where there's a collective will and coordinated action, there's hope. We have the privilege of partnering with leaders across NGOs, across the public sector, across the private sector as well. And we believe that together, we can effect the deep change that we need to bring to the fore. And we can therefore tap into the ingenuity of Africa's people to develop creative solutions to these shared problems.
First was really to be part of the starting point of Conscious Company, Conscious Leadership Academy, and acknowledging the need for Unilever, but as well for many other companies across South Africa and maybe across Africa in the future, of developing that new generation of leaders which can really find their true purpose and the purpose of the need to change the world, to make the world a better place where we can all live together in a nice ecosystem and by reducing inequality.
one is certainly able to reset whatever one's current position may be. And to reset to consciousness is no longer just a play on words. It's a reality that we all need to embrace. So I think people can reset, and people certainly can be reprogrammed to not only buy into consciousness, but to become more conscious in their behavior. And if we look at the way we as leaders operate in society and within business, it's almost incumbent upon us now to embrace consciousness in everything we do. It's a business imperative. There are many businesses that will do well despite not being conscious. But if you're going to be a leader in a time of crisis or in a time of change, then consciousness is critical to your future success. It's critical to our planet's success.
You can actually come across leadership who know about consciousness, and they know about conscious leadership, and it's all in their head. It's an academic view. And there are leaders who have their heads and their hearts aligned, and they understand what consciousness is about. And these are the leaders that really get it. These are the leaders that we select as finalists for the Conscious Companies Awards, because they do get it.
A healthier society, a better educated society makes for good business sense.
Long ago, I realized that I'm far too small to have an impact to be able to change the needle, to move the needle. But together with others, communally, we can. And Conscious Companies is really all about that.
Irrespective of external circumstances, including COVID-19, companies who are driven by conscious leaders are succeeding.
Let's take a look at the 2020 Conscious Companies Awards for the NGO finalists.
Business Engage, Colleen Larson.
So it depends on what you believe is success. For me, that inner peace of knowing that I'm doing what I've been set here to do is more fulfillment to me than what financial success brings.
Cotlands, Monica Statch.
It's really being sure and knowing that every decision, every action that you have has consequences. Because at the other end, there's always a receiver of your decisions.
Tomorrow Trust, James Donald.
We all need to be more conscious of the forces that drive us as individuals, us as collectives, and our society. So I think if you look at like the Black Lives Matter movement and these suddenly these ideas sort of take root around social justice, that actually the world could and should be much better. In order for that to happen, though, we have to really be conscious about what it is that's driving us inside.
Please welcome the chairman of the judging panel, Professor Mervyn King.
The winner of the NGO category is Tomorrow Trust.
Thank you, it's fantastic. It means a lot to Tomorrow Trust to be recognized this way. I mean, since we were founded 15 years ago, the idea of bringing consciousness into our work has meant a lot to us, and I know our team and our trustees have worked incredibly hard, particularly this year during COVID, to support our beneficiaries. And it's lovely when people note. Thank you so much to those who nominated us and the judges who chose us. It's a real honor.
Congratulations to James Donald of the Tomorrow Trust. Absolutely wonderful. James, if I could share with you my own personal journey as a conscious leader and the experience that I've had since IQ Business was recognized as the winners of the Conscious Companies Awards in 2018. It really has been an amazing journey, and a journey that has opened my mind to many new ways of thinking, acting, and doing as an organization. Our purpose at IQ Business is to grow people, grow business, and grow Africa. And this year, we really had a chance to put that into action ourselves as the onslaught of the health crisis and now the much bigger economic crisis really began to unfold. And one of the things that was so clear to us was how we needed to respond to that situation. And consciousness was the critical enabler of that, in terms of understanding, as we saw, the drama that continues to unfold and the response that we have towards that. Almost without the need to think, it's actually become ingrained in the organization, in how we act on our purpose and how we measure the outcome of our actions. So all of our conscious leaders of today and to our potential conscious leaders, I really want to encourage you to continue on this journey as we embark together on really making sure that our respective businesses and our leaders have the appropriate ethics, governance, and actions of being a conscious company. So let's take a look at this year's 2020 Conscious Companies Awards finalists.
Dow, Southern Africa, Cecilia van Roy.
It's not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Whether it's being sustainable and being conscious about every single thing that we do, products, materials, solutions that we bring to the market, and how that positively impacts humanity, society, our planet. Whether it's about giving our customers an experience that is easy, effective, and enjoyable. All of these things embody this ambition that Dow has.
Letsema, Isaac Shongwe.
Sometimes we think we need all these things, only to discover that we need very little. Therefore, those of us who are fortunate and who are able to do these kind of like amazing things, I think we owe it to society. And therefore, even the name Letsema, of the name of my business, is a Sotho word for people coming together for a common purpose. And what is that common purpose? To contribute meaningfully in society. We're here for a very short period of time.
Kuna and Nagel, Svetlana Glavich.
We need to be able to look beyond the traditional ways of perhaps looking at the company and traditional ways of looking at the stakeholders that are involved and that impact a company and vice versa. So I think consciousness goes far beyond those traditional stakeholders. Consciousness includes, for example, also communities that are in close vicinity of where we are as an organization. And there's an impact that we have as a company on those communities, and again, vice versa.
Turner and Townsend, Stephen McCartney.
As an organization, we are more collaborative today than we've ever been, right? You know, and I use that. I'm an Irishman who watches Irish rugby, and we talk about shoulder to shoulder in our you know, when it comes to rugby, and I've tried to you know, that's the language that I've used when talking to my colleagues. We're in this shoulder to shoulder, you know, and you know, people thought it was a bit of marketing to begin with, but I think now genuinely staff do believe that we are in this together. We are more collaborative than we've been. We are more communicative, and actually, I'm quite optimistic as a consequence.
Nedbank Group, Mike Brown.
About 4 or 5 years ago, we worked very hard on the purpose of Nedbank. And that purpose is to use our financial expertise to do good. That's really what the purpose of a bank is. It's the place where there's an intermediation between savers and borrowers, and how you perform that role of intermediation is absolutely vital to do good in the countries where you operate.
Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, President Ntuli.
I believe consciousness starts with self. You know, if you're a leader, you really have to look at your inner self and you know, and try to figure out what sort of a leader that you are. And I think that has been embedded in what I do, in what our organization do as well. It's really about redefining our purpose and what we stand for, which is just simply put, we just want to accelerate the ambition of people, and impact them in the way they live and work on their daily basis.
The runner-up for the Conscious Companies Award in the Business Sector 2020 is Hewlett-Packard Enterprise.
First of all, thank you so much to the Conscious Company Awards, Brenda and the team, Professor Marvin Cruz. Very humbled with this, and I think as a young leader, as an international company operating in South Africa, this is the time where leadership, given all that is going on in the world, is so important.
I'm happy to announce the winner of the Conscious Companies Awards 2020 in the business sector is Letsema.
Thank you, Mr. King, to you and the panel of judges for this award. When I entered into this process, it was exciting and good enough to be considered to be worthy of being one of the leaders in our country who's done business in a way that it demonstrates that business can be a catalyst for social change. This award is an affirmation of what we've been doing at Letsema over the last 25 years. Finally, is being recognized not only by us who are proud at Letsema, but by others again outside of the Letsema community. Yes, it is an award. Yes, it is a very exciting award, but this award is not only my award, this is the award for the Letsema family.
Thank you for joining us for this truly wonderful virtual celebration. Thank you in particular to all of our judges. Congratulations once again to all the nominees, finalists and winners of the Conscious Companies Awards 2020. And in the spirit of the glitz and glamour of the Conscious Companies Awards, here is the amazing Grace Magubani. From me, Adam Craker, I hope that you will join us again next year at the Conscious Companies Awards 2021.
Ich weiß es selber nicht, warum man gleich von Liebe spricht, wenn man in meiner Nähe ist, in meine Augen schaut und meine Hände küsst. Ich weiß es selber nicht, warum man von der Zauber spricht, der keiner widersteht, wenn sich, wenn Doch wenn das rote Licht glüht, and a